The moment my brother Hunter announced I was banned from his 30th birthday party was the same moment I realized 20 years of anonymous donations had been funding the very family that despised me. But they had no idea their mysterious benefactor was sitting right across from them at Sunday dinner, watching their faces as they celebrated their good fortune while simultaneously destroying mine. Before we dive into this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy stories about karma coming full circle. Where are you watching from? Drop your location and local time in the comments below. If you've ever been the family scapegoat who secretly held all the power, this one's going to hit different. My name is Grace, and I'm 28 years old. What happened at my brother's birthday party last month is still sending shockwaves through my entire extended family. Picture this: 50 guests in my parents' backyard, string lights twinkling overhead, and my own mother telling me I wasn't welcome at my brother's celebration because I was too negative and would ruin the atmosphere. But here's what nobody expected. When I stood up from that patio table and calmly announced that I was the anonymous donor who'd been paying for Hunter's medical school, our parents' mortgage, and half the family's major expenses for the past 2 decades, my mother's wine glass shattered against the concrete. The man they'd spent years treating like their personal disappointment had been their financial savior all along. Let me take you back to the beginning, to help you understand how we got to that explosive moment. Growing up, I was always the odd one out in the Chen family. My parents immigrated from Taiwan when I was 3, and they had very specific ideas about success, family, and what made a good daughter. Hunter, 2 years older than me, was everything they wanted in a son. Pre-med track, 6'2", charming smile, dated the right girls from the right families. I was everything they worried about in a daughter. Too quiet, too bookish, too interested in computers instead of people. Grace needs to be more social, Mom would say during family dinners, her voice carrying that particular tone of disappointment I'd grown accustomed to. Look at Mrs. Kim's daughter. She's studying nursing, she volunteers at church, she has such a sweet boyfriend. When will Grace bring someone home? I was 16 and building websites for local businesses, making more money than most adults in our neighborhood. But that wasn't the kind of success they understood or valued. Hunter would smirk from across the table. Grace is too weird for dating, Mom. She talks to computers more than people. Dad would nod approvingly at his golden son. Hunter understands people. That's why he'll make a good doctor. Grace. He'd pause, searching for something positive to say about his strange daughter. Grace is very technical. Technical. As if my abilities were some kind of consolation prize. By 18, I'd started my first software company from my dorm room. By 21, I'd sold it for 8 figures. By 25, I was running my own tech consulting firm, working with Fortune 500 companies, speaking at conferences across the globe. But at family dinners, the conversation always focused on Hunter's latest achievements, his girlfriend Chloe, his plans for the future. My success existed in a parallel universe that my family couldn't quite acknowledge. Grace makes good money, Mom would tell relatives, as if my income was my only noteworthy quality. But she works too much. No balance. Hunter knows how to enjoy life. Hunter, who was 27 and still living at home while finishing his medical residency. Hunter, who'd never paid for his own car, his own insurance, his own anything. But somehow, he was the one with balance. The anonymous donation started 6 years ago, right after I sold my second company for even more money than the first. I was 22, had more cash than I knew what to do with, and despite everything, I loved my family. I wanted them to be happy, to have the security they'd worked so hard to achieve. The first donation was to cover Mom's surgery after her breast cancer diagnosis. $50,000 appeared in their bank account with a note, "From a friend who cares about your family's well-being." They spent weeks trying to figure out who their mysterious benefactor was, going through their entire social circle, calling distant relatives, even contacting the bank to see if there were any clues. I watched them puzzle over it during Sunday dinner, keeping my expression carefully neutral as they speculated. Maybe it was Mr. Peterson from Dad's work, Mom suggested. He always said Dad was his best employee. Could be someone from church, Dad mused. We've helped a lot of people over the years. Hunter looked up from his phone. Whoever it is must really love our family. 50 grand isn't pocket change. The gratitude in their voices, the relief on their faces when they talked about how this gift had saved them from bankruptcy, it was addictive. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly helping my family, even if they didn't know it was me. So I kept going. When Dad's small restaurant started failing during the pandemic, another anonymous donation appeared. $25,000 to cover rent and payroll. When Hunter needed money for medical school applications and entrance exams, $15,000 showed up in his account with a note, "Invest in your future, young doctor." Over 6 years, I'd quietly transferred over $400,000 to various family members. Always anonymous, always untraceable, always timed perfectly for their biggest needs. The irony wasn't lost on me. The daughter they barely acknowledged at family gatherings was single-handedly keeping their lives stable. But I told myself it was worth it to see them happy, to watch the stress leave Dad's face when the restaurant payments were covered, to see Hunter graduate medical school debt-free. I became their guardian angel, and they had no idea she was sitting at their dinner table every Sunday, listening to them wonder aloud about their mysterious benefactor's identity. "Grace, you're so quiet tonight," Mom said 3 months ago during one of our regular family dinners. "Are you feeling okay?" I'd just transferred $30,000 to cover Hunter's wedding expenses, the wedding he was planning with Chloe, the wedding that would be the social event of the season according to my parents. The wedding I apparently wasn't enthusiastic enough about. "I'm fine, Mom. Just tired from work." "You work too much," she said, the same criticism I'd heard 1,000 times. "Look at Hunter. He works hard, but he still makes time for family, for his relationship. Balance, Grace. You need balance." Hunter grinned from across the table. "Grace doesn't understand balance, Mom. She's all work, no play. That's why she's still single." The comment stung, but not because of the single part. I'd been in a relationship with Julian, a brilliant architect, for 2 years. But Julian wasn't what my parents considered suitable. He was half black, half Korean, had tattoos, and worked in creative fields rather than traditional prestige careers. So I'd never brought him to family dinners, never mentioned him in conversations, never let my family know that their forever alone daughter was actually in the happiest relationship of her life. "Actually," I said quietly, "I've been seeing someone." The table went silent. Mom's chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth. "Really?" Dad asked, his surprise barely concealed. "Who is he? What does he do?" "His name is Julian. He's an architect." "Architect," Mom repeated, testing the word. "That's creative. Is he Chinese?" "Korean and African American." Another silence. Longer this time. Hunter raised an eyebrow. "Mixed race, huh? That's progressive of you, Grace." The way he said progressive made it sound like a character flaw. "Julian is brilliant," I said, feeling defensive. "He's designed buildings that have won international awards. He's kind, funny, and he treats me better than anyone ever has." "I'm sure he's very nice," Mom said in that diplomatic tone that meant she was anything but sure. "But Grace, you need to think about compatibility. Family backgrounds, values, traditions. These things matter. What matters is that he loves me, I replied. Love isn't everything, Dad said gently. Marriage is about building a life together, raising children who understand their heritage. Hunter and Chloe, they make sense together. Same background, same goals, same understanding of what family means. As if on cue, Hunter's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. Speaking of Chloe, she just sent me photos of potential venues for the birthday party. You guys are going to love what we're planning. The conversation shifted instantly from my relationship to Hunter's birthday celebration. The party that was still 2 months away but had already consumed weeks of family discussion. The party that apparently required a $20,000 budget, which I'd already anonymously contributed to without them knowing. It's going to be incredible, Mom gushed. Chloe has such wonderful taste. The decorations, the catering, the guest list, everything is going to be perfect. Guest list? I asked casually. 50 people, Hunter said proudly. Family, friends from medical school, some of Mom and Dad's friends. Chloe's handling the invitations. I waited for my invitation to be mentioned. It wasn't. What about Grace? Julian had asked when I told him about the party later that night. We were in his apartment, a gorgeous loft in the arts district that he'd designed himself, and I was curled against him on his custom-built couch. I'm sure they'll invite me, I said, though doubt was already creeping in. It's family. Julian's fingers traced patterns on my shoulder. Baby, when was the last time they included you in something they were excited about? I thought about it. Really thought about it. I don't remember. They take you for granted, he said softly. You show up, you listen to them talk about themselves, you nod and smile and contribute nothing controversial. You're like furniture to them. That's harsh. It's true. And the worst part is, you let them do it because you love them. He was right, and we both knew it. I'd spent 28 years being the accommodating daughter, the one who didn't make waves, who didn't demand attention, who was grateful for whatever scraps of acknowledgement came my way. But I had Julian now. Someone who saw my worth, who celebrated my achievements, who made me feel like I mattered. For the first time in my life, I had a mirror that reflected back someone worthy of love and respect. 2 weeks later, the invitations went out for Hunter's party. I didn't receive one. I found out when Mom called to ask if I could help with setup the day before the party. Setup? I asked, confused. I thought Chloe was handling everything. She is, but we could use an extra pair of hands. The party starts at 6, so if you could come around 2 to help with decorations. Mom, did I get an invitation to this party? Silence on the other end of the line. Well, honey, we knew you'd come. Your family. We didn't think you needed a formal invitation. But everyone else got one. Everyone else was considered important enough for the beautiful invitations that Chloe had designed and printed. Everyone except me. So I'm invited to work but not to celebrate? Grace, don't be dramatic. Of course you're welcome at the party. We just thought, well, you don't really know Hunter's friends, and you've been so stressed lately with work. We didn't want you to feel obligated. Translation, we didn't think you'd fit in with our real guests. I see. So you'll come help set up? I looked around my penthouse apartment, at the success I'd built, at the life I'd created for myself. Then I thought about my family, celebrating their good fortune while systematically excluding the person who'd made it all possible. I need to think about it. Think about what? It's your brother's birthday, Grace. Family comes first. Family comes first. The phrase they used to guilt me into compliance, while simultaneously treating me like I wasn't really part of the family at all. That night, Julian found me in my home office, staring at my computer screen where I'd pulled up 6 years of anonymous donation records. $412,000. Every major family crisis, every celebration, every milestone, I'd been there financially, even when I wasn't there emotionally. "What's all this?" he asked, settling into the chair beside me. I told him everything. The donations, the anonymity, the way my family had no idea their mysterious benefactor was the daughter they barely tolerated. Julian was quiet for a long time after I finished. "Grace," he said finally, "you do realize this is completely insane, right?" "Which part?" "All of it. You're funding the lives of people who treat you like an afterthought. You're their secret sugar mama, and they don't even have the decency to invite you to a birthday party." When he put it like that, it did sound insane. I just wanted to help them. Help them, or buy their love? The question hit like a physical blow. That's not what I was doing. Wasn't it? "Grace, you've spent 6 years trying to purchase a place in your family. And it's not working. They still see you as the weird daughter with no social skills and too much money. The money you give them anonymously doesn't change how they treat you personally." I stared at the screen, at all those transactions, at all that love poured out in secret. What do I do? Stop funding them. See what happens when your anonymous friend disappears and their golden boy has to figure out how to pay for his own life. But I couldn't just stop. Despite everything, they were my family. I loved them, even if they didn't seem to love me back the same way. The next morning, Mom called again. "Grace, honey, we need to talk." My stomach dropped. "About what?" "About the party tonight. Hunter and Chloe have been discussing it, and they're worried about the atmosphere." "What about the atmosphere?" "Well, you've been so negative lately. When you came to dinner 2 weeks ago, you barely said anything. And last week, you seemed angry the whole time. Hunter's birthday is supposed to be a celebration, and Chloe is concerned that your mood might bring down the energy." I sat down heavily on my couch. "Are you uninviting me to my brother's birthday party?" "We're not uninviting you. We're just asking you to think about whether you're in the right headspace to celebrate right now. Maybe it would be better if you sat this one out, took some time to work on your attitude." My attitude. After 28 years of being the accommodating one, the quiet one, the one who never made a scene, I was being excluded for having an attitude. "Mom, I haven't done anything wrong." "Honey, you've been distant. Disconnected from the family." Hunter noticed it too. He said you don't seem interested in his life anymore, that you barely respond when he talks about his achievements. His achievements. The ones I'd been funding for years. I see. We think some space might be good for everyone. Let Hunter have his special day without any tension. And what about next week's family dinner? Let's take it 1 week at a time. They were freezing me out. Systematically excluding me from family events because my presence was somehow negative, even though I'd literally never caused a scene, never started an argument, never done anything but sit quietly and listen to them celebrate themselves. After I hung up the phone, I sat in my apartment for hours, staring out at the city skyline. 6 years of anonymous donations. 28 years of trying to earn my place in a family that would never see me as equal to their golden child. Julian came over that evening, bringing takeout and wine. "How are you feeling?" he asked, settling beside me on the couch. "Like I've been living a lie." "What kind of lie?" "Thinking that if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, stayed quiet enough, they'd eventually value me. But the truth is, nothing I do will ever be enough because I'm not Hunter. I'm not the child they actually wanted." Julian took my hand. "So what are you going to do about it?" I thought about the party happening right now across town. 50 people celebrating my brother's success, eating food partially paid for with my money, in a backyard where the lights and decorations were funded by my anonymous contributions. All those people toasting Hunter's achievements while I sat alone in my apartment, banned from attending. I'm going to tell them the truth. Which truth? All of it. The next Sunday, I showed up for family dinner as usual. Mom seemed surprised to see me. "Grace, I wasn't sure you'd come tonight." I almost didn't. Hunter was already at the table, still glowing from his birthday celebration. He barely looked up when I sat down. "How was the party?" I asked. "Incredible," Mom gushed. "You should have seen the decorations, the food, the cake. Everything was perfect." Chloe outdid herself. "And the anonymous donation came through again," Dad added. $20,000, right into our account the morning of the party. Can you believe it? This mysterious person has been blessing our family for 6 years now. 6 years, Hunter mused. Whoever it is must really care about us to keep giving like that. I looked around the table at my family, at their faces full of gratitude for their unknown benefactor, the same faces that had shown no emotion at all when they'd excluded me from the celebration that my money had partially funded. "Actually," I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart, "I need to tell you all something." "What's that, honey?" Mom asked absently, serving rice. "I'm the anonymous donor." The serving spoon clattered against the bowl. Everyone froze. "What did you say?" Dad asked. "I said I'm the anonymous donor. I've been the one sending you money for 6 years. The surgery, the restaurant, Hunter's medical school, the wedding fund, the birthday party. All of it. It was me." Hunter's face went white. "That's not possible." $412,000 over 6 years, I continued. "I have records of every transaction, every note, every carefully timed deposit. Your mysterious benefactor isn't some wealthy stranger who cares about your family. It's your daughter. The one you just banned from celebrating with you." Mom's hand flew to her chest. "Grace, that's impossible. You don't have that kind of money." "I sold my first company for $12 million when I was 21. My second company for $30 million when I was 24. My consulting firm grosses about $15 million a year now. So yes, Mom, I have that kind of money." The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. I could hear the tick of the wall clock, the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of my own heartbeat. "You're lying," Hunter said finally. "You're making this up for attention." I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, turning the screen toward them. "Here's last week's transfer for your birthday party. $20,000 to Mom and Dad's account. Here's the one from 3 months ago for your wedding fund. $30,000. Here's the medical school payment. $15,000. Hunter leaned forward, staring at the screen. His face grew paler with each transaction. "Why?" Mom whispered. "Because I love you. Because despite everything, you're my family, and I wanted you to be happy. I wanted Dad's restaurant to survive. I wanted Hunter to become a doctor without drowning in debt. I wanted you to have the surgery that saved your life, Mom." "But why anonymously?" Dad asked. "Why not just give us the money directly?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because you would never have accepted it from me. The weird daughter with no social skills? The disappointment who works too much and doesn't understand balance? You would have found reasons why my money wasn't good enough, wasn't earned the right way, wasn't appropriate to accept." "That's not true," Mom protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it? When I told you about Julian, your first concern was whether he was Chinese. When I mentioned my work, you changed the subject to Hunter's achievements. When I've tried to share my successes, you've dismissed them as being too focused on money instead of family. But you had no problem accepting money from a stranger. Hunter had been quiet, staring at his hands. Finally, he looked up. So what, Grace? You think this makes you some kind of hero? You think we should be grateful? I think you should be honest about who's been supporting this family's lifestyle for the past 6 years. We never asked you for money. No, but you sure were happy to take it when you thought it came from someone else. Someone worthy of your gratitude and speculation and wonder. But when it comes from me, suddenly it's not heroic anymore. Mom started crying. Grace, honey, we had no idea. We didn't know you were. We didn't realize you were so successful. Because you never asked. In 6 years of family dinners, how many times have you asked about my work beyond whether I'm still single? How many times have you shown interest in my life that wasn't related to when I'm going to give you grandchildren? The truth hung in the air between us, undeniable and uncomfortable. We love you, Grace, Dad said quietly. You love the idea of me. The version of me that sits quietly at dinner and doesn't make waves. But you don't love the real me. The successful me. The me that built something extraordinary. That version of me makes you uncomfortable because she doesn't fit your narrative about your disappointing daughter. Hunter pushed back from the table. This is ridiculous. So you have money. So what? That doesn't excuse your attitude lately. You've been bitter and distant. I've been reevaluating my priorities. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up, gathering my purse. It means the anonymous donations stop now. Your mysterious benefactor is officially retiring. Grace, wait, Mom called out. We need to talk about this. We need to work this out as a family. Now we're a family? When you need my money, I'm family. When you're planning celebrations, I'm a negative influence. The birthday party was a misunderstanding, Dad said desperately. We thought you needed space. We were trying to be considerate. You were trying to exclude me without feeling guilty about it. There's a difference. I walked toward the door, my family's voices rising behind me in a chaos of protests and excuses and pleas. But I didn't stop. For the first time in my life, I kept walking. The fallout was immediate and predictable. My phone rang nonstop for 3 days. Mom, Dad, Hunter, even Chloe calling to mediate the situation. I let them all go to voicemail. The messages started apologetic but grew increasingly desperate as the reality of their financial situation set in. Without my anonymous contributions, they were looking at some hard truths about their lifestyle. Hunter's message on day 4 was particularly enlightening. Grace, I know you're mad, but you can't just cut off the family like this. Do you know how much we're counting on that money? The wedding is in 6 months. I've already put deposits down based on the budget we planned. You can't just leave us hanging. Notice how quickly it became about the money, not about repairing our relationship. Julian found me at my apartment a week later, surrounded by work projects I'd thrown myself into to avoid thinking about my family. How are you holding up? He asked, clearing a space on my couch. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're brilliant, successful, and beautiful, but you're not fine. I looked up from my laptop. They called me 87 times this week. What did they say? Everything except we're sorry for treating you like you didn't matter. Julian pulled me closer. Have you considered that maybe this is the best thing that could have happened? Being disowned by my family is the best thing? Being free from people who only value you for what you can provide for them is the best thing. 2 weeks later, Mom showed up at my apartment building. The doorman called up to ask if I wanted to see her. I almost said no. Send her up. She looked smaller somehow when I opened the door. Older. The stress of the past 2 weeks had aged her. Grace, we need to talk. I let her in but didn't offer her anything. We sat on opposite ends of my couch like strangers. Hunter's wedding is off, she said without preamble. I'm sorry to hear that. Chloe's family found out about the financial situation. They don't think Hunter can provide the lifestyle they expected for their daughter. The irony was staggering. Hunter's future in-laws had done exactly what my parents had always worried about, judged a potential partner based on financial stability. Only they'd judged correctly that Hunter couldn't actually afford the life he'd been living. What does Hunter plan to do? He's looking into loans. For the remainder of medical school, for a place to live. He'll have to move out of our house. That sounds like a good plan. Independence will be good for him. Mom stared at me. Grace, he's drowning. We're all drowning. The restaurant barely breaks even without the extra help. My medical bills are piling up again. And Hunter. Hunter realizes he's never actually had to support himself. Most 30-year-olds figure that out earlier. Please. We know we made mistakes. We know we didn't treat you fairly. But you can't punish us forever. I'm not punishing you, Mom. I'm just not funding you anymore. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Punishment would be actively trying to hurt you. I'm simply no longer giving you money you never acknowledged receiving. She was quiet for a long time. We took you for granted, she said finally. Yes, you did. We didn't realize how successful you'd become. Because you never asked. We were proud of you. We just didn't know how to show it. By treating me like I was worth less than Hunter? Mom winced. We had different expectations. For both of you. It doesn't mean we loved you less. It means you respected me less. We were wrong. It was the first real acknowledgement I'd heard from any of them. But 28 years of feeling like the lesser child couldn't be erased by 2 words. I need you to understand something, Mom. I didn't give you that money to buy your love. I gave it because I loved you. But love without respect isn't sustainable. And you've never respected me. We respect you now. You respect my bank account now. That's different. Mom left that afternoon without resolution. I felt sad but not guilty. For the first time in my adult life, I was prioritizing my own well-being over my family's comfort. 3 months later, I got an unexpected call from Hunter. Grace? It's me. I'd been expecting this call eventually. Hi, Hunter. I wanted to thank you. That wasn't what I'd expected him to say. For what? For cutting me off. I almost dropped the phone. I'm sorry, what? You were right. I'm 30 years old, and I'd never actually taken care of myself. I'd never had to budget or sacrifice or work for anything beyond my medical degree. Chloe breaking up with me was the best thing that ever happened. Okay. I got a job. Part-time at a clinic while I finish my residency. I moved into a studio apartment that I pay for myself. I'm learning to cook, to clean, to live within my means. And you know what? I'm happier than I've ever been. I sat down heavily. I don't understand. I was miserable, Grace. Living at home at 30, having Mom do my laundry, letting my little sister pay for my life without even knowing it. I was a child. A successful, educated child, but still a child. So you're not angry with me? I was. For about 2 months, I was furious. But then I realized something. You gave me the greatest gift you could have given me. You forced me to grow up. We talked for an hour that day. Really talked, maybe for the first time in our adult lives. He told me about his job, his apartment, his newfound independence. I told him about Julian, about my work, about the life I'd built. I owe you an apology, he said before we hung up. Not just for the money thing. For everything. For treating you like you were less important than me. For letting Mom and Dad do the same thing. For not defending you when you needed defending. Hunter. I mean it. You're incredible, Grace. You built an empire while I was playing doctor with someone else's money. And we treated you like you were the failure in the family. That conversation changed everything. Not with my parents, they were still struggling to adjust to their new financial reality. But with Hunter. For the first time, I had a real relationship with my brother. 6 months later, Julian proposed. Not with some elaborate public gesture, but quietly, privately, in the apartment he'd designed for us to share. I want to build a life with you, he said, getting down on one knee in our kitchen. A life where you're celebrated, not tolerated. Where your success is our success. Where you never have to buy your place at the table because you already belong there. I said yes through tears. When I called to tell my family about the engagement, the reactions were mixed. Mom cried, happy tears, she insisted, though I suspected there was grief mixed in for the daughter she'd pushed away. Dad was cautiously optimistic. We'd like to meet Julian properly this time. If you're willing to bring him to dinner. Hunter was genuinely excited. Grace, that's amazing. Julian sounds perfect for you. When's the wedding? Can I walk you down the aisle? The offer surprised me. In Chinese tradition, Dad would typically have that honor. But Hunter's offer felt like recognition that he'd been more of a supportive family member lately than our parents had been. I'd like that, I said. The wedding planning was revealing. When I mentioned that Julian and I were thinking of a small ceremony, maybe 50 people, Mom immediately started planning a much larger celebration. Grace, honey, we have so many relatives to invite. And your father's business associates. And the neighbors. We should rent the ballroom at the Grand Hotel. Mom, it's my wedding. Julian and I want something intimate. But what will people think? If we have a small wedding, they'll assume we're not happy about the marriage. The old Grace would have given in, would have agreed to the big wedding to avoid conflict. But the new Grace had learned that my comfort mattered more than other people's assumptions. They can think whatever they want. This is our day. The wedding ended up being exactly what Julian and I wanted. 30 people in a botanical garden, gorgeous flowers everywhere, personal vows that made everyone cry. Hunter did walk me down the aisle, and his pride in that moment felt completely genuine. Mom and Dad were there, trying to be supportive even though it wasn't the celebration they'd envisioned. They were polite to Julian's family, awkward but making an effort. Most importantly, I felt like myself on my wedding day. Not the accommodating daughter trying to keep everyone happy, but Grace Chen, successful businesswoman, marrying the man who saw her worth from day one. During the reception, Mom pulled me aside. Grace, I owe you an apology. A real one. I waited. For 28 years, I treated you like you were somehow less than Hunter. I pushed you to be more like other people instead of celebrating who you were. I took your gifts and your love for granted. And when you needed us most, when you were growing into this incredible woman, I was too busy worrying about why you weren't more traditional to see what an amazing daughter I actually had. It was the apology I'd been waiting for my entire life. Thank you, Mom. I know I can't undo the damage. But I want you to know that I see you now. Really see you. And I'm so proud of what you've built, who you've become." We both cried then, holding each other in the garden while my wedding guests danced nearby. The relationship with my parents is still evolving. We have dinner once a month now instead of every week. The conversations are more balanced, more genuine. They ask about my work, my marriage, my thoughts on things beyond when I'm having children. They've never asked for money again, and I've never offered. It feels healthier this way, like our relationship is based on actual affection rather than financial dependency. Hunter and I talk regularly now. He finished his residency, got a job at a hospital across town, and started dating a nurse named Monica who thinks his independence is sexy. He's happier than I've ever seen him. "You know what the funny thing is?" he told me last week. "I always resented how easy everything seemed for you. Your success, your money, your achievements. But it wasn't easy, was it?" "No," I said. "It was the hardest thing I've ever done. Building something from nothing while feeling like my own family didn't believe in me. I'm sorry I made it harder. We were kids, Hunter. We didn't know better. We weren't kids when I was 30 and still taking your money without knowing it." That was true. But forgiveness felt better than resentment. The best part of this whole experience has been learning to value myself the way I deserve to be valued all along. Julian reminds me daily that I'm worth celebrating, not just tolerating. My work continues to thrive, my marriage is everything I hoped it would be, and my relationship with my family, while different now, is more honest than it's ever been. Sometimes I think about that birthday party, about sitting alone in my apartment while 50 people celebrated my brother with partially my money. It feels like a lifetime ago, like a different person's story. The woman who sat alone that night was still trying to earn love through sacrifice. The woman I am now knows that love without respect is just dependency, and I deserve both. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever given pieces of yourself to people who didn't value what they were receiving, if you've ever had to choose between being appreciated and being authentic, I see you. Your worth isn't determined by how much you sacrifice for others. Your success matters even if the people closest to you don't acknowledge it. The price of standing up for yourself can feel impossibly high when it means losing relationships you've spent your whole life trying to preserve. But sometimes the relationships you lose weren't really yours to begin with. Sometimes they were just transactions disguised as love. What I learned is that when you stop accepting less than you deserve, the right people will rise to meet your standards. And the ones who can't or won't will show you exactly where you stood in their priorities all along. Today, I wake up in a house Julian designed for us, go to work at a company I built from nothing, and come home to a partner who celebrates my achievements instead of diminishing them. My family relationships are smaller now but deeper. More honest. Based on who we actually are rather than who we think we're supposed to be. The anonymous donor is officially retired. But Grace Chen, the woman who knows her worth, is just getting started. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to stand on their own 2 feet. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to stop funding relationships that don't value you. Have you ever been the family member who gave more than they received? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how you found your worth. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about choosing self-respect over family approval. Until next time, remember, you can't buy love, but you can definitely stop subsidizing indifference.